I want to talk about a younger version of myself. Not with contempt, but honestly, there was a version of me that had real responsibilities, weight on his shoulders, people depending on him, and still managed to live like none of that was true in the margins of his life, in the hours that were his to manage, in the decisions that were his to make. And in those spaces, what I wanted was simple. No rules, no schedule, no restraint, nobody telling me what to do, nobody controlling my time, my choices, how I spent what little I had left at the end of a long day. That felt like freedom. It felt like the one thing that was actually mine. So I protected it. And I want to tell you what that actually looked like. Because it didn't look dramatic. It never does. It looked like staying up too late. A couple of beers, something on TV, the night slipping past midnight when I had to be up early. Not because anything important was happening, just because it felt like my time and I didn't want to give it up. And then the morning came hard. Slow start, foggy, behind before the day even began. Less present than I needed to be, less capable than the people depending on me deserved. That's not a dramatic failure, but it compounded. Day after day of choosing the short feeling of freedom over the actual capacity to function. And slowly, quietly, the life I was supposed to be building was getting harder to hold together. And it wasn't just the nights, it was the money. Spending what came in because it felt good to spend it. Not preparing, not building any margin between where I was and what could go wrong. And then the tire blew out, and there was nothing there. Miss work, lose money, stress compounds, small problem becomes a large one. It becomes a thing that takes weeks to recover from. One bad day could own me, and that happened more than once. Here's what I didn't understand then. That wasn't freedom. That was a trap I was building myself, one undisciplined decision at a time. When you have no structure, every problem controls you. When you have no margin, every mistake costs more than it should. When you have no routine, every decision drains energy you don't have to spare. When you have no preparation, every surprise becomes a crisis instead of just an inconvenience. The opposite of freedom isn't rules. The opposite of freedom is instability. Think about what margin actually means. Financial margin, money between you and disaster. Time margin, space between you and being overwhelmed. Emotional margin, enough interior stability to handle difficulty without breaking. Physical margin, a body that's rested and capable rather than running on empty because you stayed up 2 hours past when you should have been asleep. Discipline creates margin. Margin creates options. And options are what freedom actually feels like. Not the sensation of doing whatever you want in a given moment, but the structural capacity to make real choices, to respond instead of react, to not have your life determined by whatever went wrong this week. Most of us were never told that. The message we absorbed was different. Do whatever makes you happy. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. Rules are oppression. Structure is control. Your feelings are the most reliable guide to how you should live. And there's something in all of that which sounds right, because autonomy matters. Self-determination matters. The problem isn't the value, it's the confusion about what actually produces it. Because here's what too many unstructured choices actually produce. Drift. Here's what no routine actually produces. Decisions that cost more energy than they should. Here's what no preparation produces. A life where you're always one bad day away from everything getting harder. Here's what no discipline produces. Dependency on circumstance. We were told freedom meant having no limits. Nobody told us that limits are what keep life from falling apart. I know when things started to shift for me, when I started showing up, to work, to commitments, to the people who were counting on me, when I started saving money instead of spending it, when I started going to bed when I needed to, instead of when I felt like it, when I started doing things I didn't feel like doing because they needed to be done. At first, it felt like giving something up. That's honest. Early discipline doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like restraint. But then something changed. Problems started hitting differently. They didn't disappear, but they didn't land as hard. The stress that used to compound now had somewhere to go. Decisions got easier because the foundation underneath them was more stable. I stopped being so tired all the time, and for the first time I noticed something I hadn't felt in a while. I could actually choose things, not just react to them, not just survive them. The more discipline I built, the more room I had to breathe. I want to make one more distinction before I close because I think it matters. Not all discipline is the same. There is discipline that comes from outside, imposed, demanded, enforced by someone else's agenda, and there is discipline you choose. Structure you build because you understand what it's for. The habit, the routine, the commitment you maintain not because someone is watching, but because you've connected it to something that matters. Training, prayer, saving, showing up, keeping your word, taking care of your body, building something over time. Discipline without meaning feels like prison. You're going through motions with no anchor, following rules with no reason, and it grinds you down. That kind of discipline is just control wearing different clothes. But discipline with meaning feels like solid ground. When you understand why the structure is there, when it's connected to who you're trying to become, what you're trying to build, what you actually care about, it doesn't feel like chains. It feels like stability, like you're building something instead of just being managed by something. That's the distinction philosophy and faith have always tried to hold on to. Not discipline as conformity, discipline as formation, not restraint as oppression, restraint as the condition under which something real can be built. So let me come back to where I started. That younger version of me thought freedom meant nobody telling him what to do. The less disciplined he was, the less free he actually felt. Not because anyone was controlling him, because his own chaos was.